Amy Klobuchar.
Well, hello, Senator Baldwin. Thank you for hosting me in your wonderful state of Wisconsin. Thank you, Tim and Lisa and your family for having us at this beautiful farm. I'm hoping a cow will chime in while I speak, like what happened to Tammy. I have very fond memories of campaigning with Tammy in western Wisconsin, and every time we do it, we have a winning ticket. And at one point, I will never forget, a barn cat decided to just crawl up on the podium while we were speaking and laid out in the sun. And I viewed that as a good sign right before Halloween, and I view these cows in the same way. Tammy is an incredible leader for your state. I see it every single day. Of course, the work she does on healthcare, someone who is way ahead of her time when it came to, based on her own personal experience, protecting people's health insurance so they don't get kicked off for pre-existing conditions. But she's also been a leader on rural issues and making sure she's out there in front. And she has a heart of gold, which is a good thing to have right now in politics. I think you would all agree. So Wisconsin and Minnesota, we know there have been some, rivalries, maybe with football teams. But there's also things that bring us together. And in my case, actually, my mom was born here in Wisconsin. Her parents were Swiss immigrants. Guess what my great-grandma did? What do you think, Tim? She was a cheesemaker. That is a true story. And so they came to Wisconsin from Switzerland. Her parents, my mom's parents, met in Monroe, which was called the Swiss cheese capital of the United States. And then they went to work as dairy farmers and then as cheesemakers. And they eventually moved to Milwaukee, and that's where my grandma and my grandpa met. And he worked at the Porth Pie Company during the Depression. And they didn't have a lot of money, and they got a little extra syrup, and he would use it from work and made jelly that they would sell in the neighborhood on the back of a wagon. And my grandma and grandpa lived in Milwaukee their whole lives, and I spent a lot of time there and a lot of time in Wisconsin. So, and it all started with cheese making, and which all starts with cows. So thank you for having us here today. The other thing that I think that our states share is a heart, because we're in the heart of the heartland. And we know what it means to look out for each other. We stand by our work. We aren't afraid of compromise as long as it's for the right reasons. And under the Trump administration, it feels like so much that we've learned and what we valued in terms of civic responsibility has been left behind. But when I get out to places like this, I know it's still there. Over the past 4 years, rural America has reaped what Donald Trump has sowed. As a result of what Tim and Tammy mentioned, the failed trade policies, low commodity prices, and unprecedented market consolidation, farm bankruptcies were up by 25% in 2019, with Wisconsin sadly seeing more than any other state, losing 800 dairy farms just last year. The president's tax bill amounted to a heap of manure for our farmers. It didn't lower taxes for farmers like he promised. In fact, it raised taxes for the poorest 20% of family farmers. And I can tell you, when the president went down to Mar-a-Lago after he passed that tax bill, he went into a room of all his friends and he said these famous words: "You all just got a lot richer." Well, I can tell you that Tim and Lisa were not in that room, nor were any dairy farmers from Wisconsin, nor were any farmers from Wisconsin, nor were there people from the rural areas of this state. And then his Secretary of Agriculture had the audacity to joke that farmers are whiners. And I think we know who's been doing a lot of the whining in this nation lately. Today, as this pandemic has spread across this nation, rural communities have been hit particularly hard, and we know we've seen increases in the people hit by the virus right here in this state and in my state in the last few weeks. In fact, we've seen 33 states see increases across this country. But what's not always told is the effect that we've seen in rural areas. And I'd start with the discussion I had with some of my rural superintendents from Minnesota, from way on the other side of our state, on the western side, about what their kids were encountering as they were trying to learn. The schools will open, then there'll be an outbreak, and then the kids will learn from home, but about 15% of the houses don't have adequate broadband, something that you guys just discussed, which you have here, especially in bluff areas. It can get really hard in hilly areas to have adequate cell phone service and broadband. And this has just been around for a while, but the pandemic has put a huge magnifying glass on this problem, that we literally have families that don't have high-speed broadband. More of us have been relying on the Postal Service to get our medicine and our bills, and the president's budget cuts and attacks on the USPS have caused record delays, again, really targeting a lot of the harm in rural areas that rely for that last leg on the Postal Service. And hotels, and the fact that we've seen so many closures in the hospitality industry, who does that hurt at its core? It hurts rural areas too. Not only the rural diners and the one place that some of our small towns depend on that was already just getting by on a dime, but also because so much of our food is supplied for these diners, and it's switched around across the country, and for restaurants and hotels, what's been happening. In fact, back in April, dairy farmers were forced to pour out an estimated 3.7 million gallons of fresh milk a day. It didn't have to be this way. Tim was saying this in the barn. We could have had the knowledge out to the American people right away. In my case, my husband got COVID, got really sick with pneumonia, was in the hospital for a week, and then I find out a month ago that the president knew that it was deadly back then. That's what he told Bob Woodward. And worse than that, he knew it was airborne, and he knew it was at higher risk inside, something that we did not know back then when everyone was just cleaning off their surfaces and washing their hands. So for me, this is personal, just like it is for so many families across the country. We need a president who will buy American instead of selling American workers and American farmers out. And that gets to Joe Biden. I'm laughing as I'm in this wind because, as you know, I like giving speeches in bad weather and weird weather events, like announcing in the middle of a blizzard. I mean, this is actually nothing, just a little hair in your face. So Joe Biden is going to be that president. Joe is a man of scrappy, working class roots, a man whose own hardships have made him more determined to lift up those who have been left out. And he is a man of his word. So when Joe says he's going to stand up for American farmers, you can trust him. He's going to expand on the Obama-Biden administration's microloan program for new and beginning farmers, really key for people who want to pass farms down to their families eventually, and making sure that we keep small farms alive. And he's going to protect family farms from the threats posed by corporate consolidation. He has a plan to invest in rural infrastructure, that broadband we were just talking about, as well as roads and bridges. And he's going to listen to scientists when it comes to this virus, because if we could have a national testing plan, it would make it so much easier for our workers to go back, especially in food processing and in the restaurants I just talked about and the hotels, if we had done that from the beginning. But there's still time to do that as we look at this 8-month bridge, 6-month bridge, however long it's going to take to when we start seeing vaccine come out. And what I want to see is an administration that takes us seriously, that will help us to pass legislation, and that's exactly what Tammy was talking about, which is the bill that we should get done now to give us that bridge into what I call the day after tomorrow, whether it's in mid-next year or the like, so that we are ready to expand our economy again. Simply put, Joe Biden is in your corner, Wisconsin. Rain or shine, snow or wind. Donald Trump spends a lot of time calling this state Trump country and very little time listening, not just talking at big rallies, but listening to the people who call it home. Here's the truth. Wisconsin is not Trump country. Neither is Minnesota, nor Iowa, nor Ohio, nor Michigan, nor any other place. It's your country. It's your decision how you're going to vote. And we need you to vote, as Michelle Obama says, like your life depends on it, because it does. So make that plan. Get out there. And most importantly, call everyone you know and email them. It gets frustrating to be isolated at home. Well, this is something you can do. Yes, volunteer for the campaign, but you literally can do this in your own circle of friends. I was on a Zoom call with a bunch of college students. They're all asking all these questions. And I say, well, how many of you actually have voted yet? And like one raised their hand. I go, get off this Zoom call right now. The point of it is that we can't just talk the talk. We actually have to go and vote. And that's what we're asking you today. Because like I said, Wisconsin isn't your country. Wisconsin is not Trump country. Wisconsin is your country, and it's our country, and it's time to vote. So thank you, everyone. Let's get to work, and let's get this done. Thanks for having me, Wisconsin. Okay, put on my mask. Setting a good example. There we go.